Hello guys, assuming we are live. Hopefully everyone's been having a very nice Sunday. Today we're gonna be working towards 3000 again. Yesterday was a big failure. Maybe we can come back from that. Maybe we won't. We'll see. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. And as always, I'll leave you guys with the puzzle of the day, which is gonna be much easier to the ones that we're about to solve. And give me a couple of minutes while I make sure everything's working on the technical level. We're about to solve. I think that's working. There we go. Okay. I think everything's fine. I think everything's fine. Assuming everything is fine, which it seems to be the case. There we go. Okay. I'm assuming everything is fine. So this is a very typical motif. Whenever you see a bishop on g6, the first thing you think of is, or one of the first things you should be thinking of is landing a queen on h7. Or for example, in this case, like let's say you could somehow get the queen to the h file, check, king g8, queen h7, king f8, and you should be thinking about those motifs. In this case, if a queen somehow lands in the h file, as I said, there's going to be check on h7, king f8, check on h8, king on e7, and then queen e8, mate. Sometimes this pattern doesn't even make it, like in this pattern, black doesn't even make it to e7. Sometimes there's a rook or some sort of piece on e7, and after queen h8, this is mate. Or maybe there's a rook on the e file. So the pattern adopts different shapes and forms. Chess is typical of that as well. But now, what I mean with this, and the reason why I'm explaining this, is that we have to somehow get this queen into the h file. That's the logic you should be following, or one of the first instincts. And rook h1 is the first move doing that. Why? Like the queen still can't enter. Well, this is a very typical sacrifice. Now we've emptied the space. So what we've done is, this is called a desperado. Obviously, we would rather actually not have that rook. If we didn't have that rook, it would be check, 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 sorry, check, 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 mate, and we win. So we get rid of that rook, basic stuff. I'm not sure why I'm explaining this, assuming that most of you are advanced. There we go. But yeah, I'm assuming some of you are beginners. Now let's move on to a completely different level of chess. I've been struggling with these myself, so from being a teacher, I'm gonna be a player. And we get an endgame. So this is the beginning. Let me restart the timer and write this down, 342. Best of luck, everyone. I'm assuming that some of you are gonna be pausing the video and trying to figure this out by themselves. And I think that's actually the best way to interact with this video and this content in general. Sorry. So okay, time is ticking. Let's figure this out. So we have a king and pawn endgame. We're not up a pawn, it's equal material. But our king is more active. And black's pawn is further advanced, which sometimes is a weakness, sometimes it's a strength. I think in this case it's probably a weakness. But I think the main reason why white should be winning here is because of the king activity. However, maybe this is one of those positions where it's like mutual Zugzwang. Like obviously I don't want to move my king. My king is as active as it gets on e4. If I ever move my king back, king d5 is annoying. At least it seems at the first glance. If somehow this like if the situation in the king side was different, for example, if there were pawns on h5 and g5, then that would be easily winning, I believe, after like simply king f5, because then the 3 pawns like fail to create any passed pawn. If you have a majority in the side of a board, you're supposed to create a passed pawn with it, not just block everything out. Which is actually what happened to white in this case. Although there is a passed pawn, I guess it's just blocked, prevented or limited by the king. But yeah. So what have we learned? By the way, g5 is also potentially interesting. Obviously, black doesn't have to take twice. I think if black does take twice, is that an immediate win? King f3, king d4... a4, king c5. It's not an immediate win. It's a draw. So g5 is out of the question. Black can even take twice, but obviously black can also take once and then h5, and I'm probably in big trouble. g5 is nothing. It's nonsense. h5 may be forcing some sort of situation as I like that I was talking about. For example, h5 takes. All of a sudden black is, black's king set is rendered useless. But maybe more important than this, black's king has to move. So it's more like we force black to move the king. Let me ask you a question, or let me ask a question in general. What if we could say skip? Like, what if we gave black the go? Obviously, they don't want to move the king themselves because we go king d4, for example. But then the problem begins with f5, I think. But as soon as they go f5, very typical pattern that we should recognize, h5 from white. And we actually force a passed pawn for ourselves. Now, the problem is that if it was black to play again, I don't think they're going to play king b5, king d4. Although they could play h5 in that version as well, but I think why would they include king b5 and king d4? That only benefits white. So if it was black to play again, I think they would play h5. Well, takes, king f5 stuff. King d4. Yeah, but this pawn is never, like, black can never promote this pawn. For example, if you leave it, if it's a race, whether white managed to take all of these pawns, which is clearly happening, it just takes time, or black goes for this, I don't think black ever gets king d3 because of a4, king c2, a5, king b2, a6, c3, a7, oh, it's closer than I thought. Closer than I thought. So h5 takes. Sorry. If it was black to play again, they would play h5 takes. King f5, king d4, king f6, king d3, a4, king c2, a5, king b2, a6, c3, a7, c2, a8, and black promotes at the same time. We don't have any checks that force a queen trade. That would be amazing, but we can't force it. So it's a draw. h5 takes. Sorry, what am I saying? But that's if it's black to play again and black plays h5, which is clearly not the case. Maybe this reveals the answer, because if it was black to play again, black would play h5. This, in other words, black is threatening h5. Is black threatening g5? No, because then h5, it's black to play again, and it's some sort of Zugzwang, because they have to move the king, then our king comes to d4. f5, if it was black to play again, f5 wouldn't worry me, because we simply take, and then we are arriving much quicker. We're not trying to promote the a pawn anymore. I think we promote the h pawn with check. I know that's not true. If it was black to play again, black could play f5, but assuming that, okay, I actually spend my, back to reality, it's white to play, I play h5. If f5, gf, king f5, king d4, king g6, king d3, and that extra tempo obviously comes super handy, because after h6, c3, h7, c2, h8, black can't take our pawn, because queen c3, queen c2 gets rid of black's only source of counterplay, meaning we win. And if they go to b1, we can sacrifice the queen and a4, a5 then. So I think it's h5, g8, like h5, f5 doesn't worry me. h5, g5, I think we simply... Oh yeah, that's interesting. So now could be potentially mutual Zugzwang, but I think maybe even a4. But okay, let's double check this. I could also go king f5, king d4, king g6, king d3, king h6, king c2. But now the difference is that it's not check. King g6, king b2, h6, c3, h7, c2, h8, c1, queen f6, king a3. And you know, as far as I go, like queen and pawn endgames go, I think that's probably a draw. So h5, g5, maybe not king f5, that allows king d4, but maybe a4. What's the idea of this move? Obviously just kind of saying skip. Obviously it does weaken my pawn, but then I have king d4 potentially. And if king b3, a5, we're always taking on c4. If f5, I think I can always take and my pawn becomes a big problem. Can we use that idea right away? a4, h5, gh, gh. a5, king b5, king d4. We could be actually using that idea right away. Interesting. a4. Gonna do like very computer calculation, which is just if f5, we take king b4. If a4, f5 takes. We have a little bit more than 2 minutes. a4, f5 takes. Only logical move I see is king b4, because if king d4, a5, they have to go back. So king b4. But yeah, we're simply winning now. King g6, king a4. They could go king b3 as well. So I go back, king e4. I know that doesn't make sense. Or does it? Could potentially make sense, actually. I don't know, maybe not. a4, f5, takes, king b4. King g6, king b3, king h6, king b2, and yeah. And actually, sorry, against king b3, I think I have to start running right away. But even that, so king b3, a5, king b2, a6, c3, a7, c2, and once again, we don't have any way of forcing the queen trade. So a4, f5, gf, king f5, king b4. King e4 is the only try I have left. King a4, king d4, but then king b4 or king b3. I'm not sure which one. Or king b5. Yeah, that doesn't look like a win. So a4, f5 is the problem. Takes. King f5, king b4. a5, king a5. Ooh, look at this. a5, king a5, king g6, king b4, king h6, king b3. Nah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yeah, we're super slow. That's the problem. Okay, well, that makes me think it's h5. Wow, okay. It's not that. Ducissasofia, thank you very much. Well, that's unfortunate, but I think, I mean, I'm looking forward to the refutation of this. I don't want to go view solution just yet. I want to continue trying. King e3 has it. Yeah, I rejected it maybe too quickly. Yeah. What a move. If this ends up being the case. The only benefit I see, I think the true way you should go about this is refuting h5, finding out why this is wrong. I'm gonna try this first. Moving the pawn for what about moving the a pawn? Yeah, this is what we were trying. a4, king b4. I know a4, the problem is f5. I'm moving the king to the back of his pawns. Yeah, for example, but it's not forced to go king b4. f5 is a problem. gf, king f5, and they go king b4. And then if we go king g6, I think they can even take the pawn, but king b3 is clearly clearly promoting this pawn very quickly. So h5, what is wrong with this? g5? h5, f5, gf, gh, maybe? Maybe that's it, actually. f5, gf. We only calculated gf, but not gh. So h5, f5, gf, gh. So now we have pawns on f5, and my opponent has a pawn on h5. Well, my opponent, black. And then... But maybe we have king e5 there. Nah, that doesn't look right. King f4. King d5. a4. Yeah, there's no way that's it. So it's not that. gh, maybe just natural. h5, gh. And then king b5 with the idea of king a4, king b3. But then we go king d4. Or is it king f5, king f4, king f6, king b3? King g6, king b2. Yeah, that's never working. So king d4, but then f5. a4, b4, a5. That's insane. Okay, give me a second. h5, gh. King b5, king d4, f5. a4. The idea is if they take, we take on c4 and we're completely winning because we're gonna take these two pawns. Like this pawn on b2 is gonna be a distraction. We're gonna go over here. I think we're in time. So h5, gh, king b5. I'm gonna put another timer for this actually. Yeah, gh is Shantano. We're gh, king b5. h5, gh, king b5. I don't think this is it. King d4, f5, a4. King b4, sure, that's possible, but then we go a5. f4, a6, we're winning. So it's not gh. What on earth is it? Wow, I mean, I'm very surprised. What is their refutation? h5, g5. g5, we go at the very least. Oh yeah, I remember calculating this. King f5 doesn't work because of king d4. But then we can go a4. We froze the king side. Black doesn't have any chances of creating a pass pawn anymore, so we simply go a4. And if king b4, we go king d4. Sorry, h5, g5, a4, king b4, king d4. King a4, king c4, we're winning. So I'm gonna go view this. Okay, sorry. Maybe we should spend a little bit more time. What about king f4, move 1? I'm not sure. I'm not even sure why h5 is wrong, so I'm trying to figure this out first. Although I'm kind of giving up for the sake of practicality. I don't want to be here forever like yesterday. It's just, I'm very curious. I really want to find this. My theory is that at some point you'll have to work hard to find these resources, and then it becomes easier. I really have to do the work without clicking view the solution. View the solution is kind of giving up in life. That's my theory. Okay, there's limits to that as well. Obviously, if you've been thinking about this for 20 minutes, then you tried your best. Call it a day. h5, gh. King d6. Nah, that doesn't make sense. King b5, king d4 is winning. And there's even an easier way of looking at this. GH really doesn't work. Like f5 right away, we take it, and then we're always worst case scenario in time to take this pawn. Like for example, take f5, pawn sacrifice takes, king d4, king e6, king d3, king d5. Like completely winning. Black never gets the chance of promoting that pawn. We can stop it. h5, gh, king b5. I think we can still go king f5, king a4. Ah, no, sorry, we're not in time. But okay, then we change to king d4. And I'll repeat, gh, king b5, king d4. If f5 now, only move, because if not, if you move the king, king c4, then we simply go, I think, king d5. f4, king e4, king a4, king f4, king b... Ah, no, sorry, I messed up. Not king d5, so h5, gh, king b5, king d4, f5. And then, I'll read that in a sec. And then a4, I suppose. And then king b4 is forced, because if king a4, king c4 is always winning. For example, king a4, the king takes a4, king takes e4, f4, king d3, king b3, king e4, king b2, king f4. They're in time. Maybe that's the line. Wow, I would be surprised. Okay, let's just say, even if we're living in ignorance, let's just say we found the refutation. The refutation is gh, king b5, king d4, f5, a4, king takes a4, king takes e4, f4, king d3, king b3, king f4, king b2, king f4, king c3, king f5, king d4, king d6, king e5. And if king h6, king f6. Typical draw. So h5, gh, king b5, king d4, f5. But it's still very hard to believe this is a draw. King e5, king a4. Actually, it's king d5, king f4. King d4, f3, king e3, king a4. King f3, king b3. Yeah, he's in time. Black is in time. He or she. So as a result of that, h5gh is the problem. So we have to make another type of waiting move. Let's try a4 again. f4, but then f5 was the problem. gf. Sorry, Shantano, I was going to say that. I was going to read your... No, I have solved problems after thinking for 30, even 45 minutes sometimes. Just single puzzle, but it's satisfying after calculating all the puzzles. I've solved puzzles after thinking for 30. Oh no, it's going. But it's satisfying after calculating. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that you're responding to... You're saying no, it's not good to obsess over something. Yeah, I mean, it's a balance. Sometimes it's... I've always thought for... If I'm really curious, I wanted to think for like 20 plus, I will. Because I feel like I'm giving up. Like I feel like it's worth it. Like as soon as, like, if I solve that, then I don't know. Yeah, king e3, but then king d5, I'm a little bit annoyed. King e3, king d5. King e3, king d5. a4, king c5. King e3, king d5. a4, king c5. a5, king b5. Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure what we're doing there. h5, gh. We're just looking at the main line of that to see, to kind of absorb the general gist of this position. So the reason why black is drawing is because this king a4, king b3 idea is coming pretty quickly. a4 just facilitates that idea. King e3, king d5. I don't see this being super amazing. I mean, it could be some sort of insane triangulation. King d5, king e3, king, like literally just saying, look, I skip. But even if we triangulate and it's black to play again, after h5, it's kind of the same as playing h5 ourselves. Like if we take. So king e3 by method of elimination, maybe over here. King e3, king d5, a4, king c5, king e4. But that's literally the same as going a4 right away. So what am I saying? Very interesting. Very interesting. There's something here that is gonna make our minds blow. King e3, king d5, king d2. I don't know. Okay, let's try a4. a4, king b4. I've assumed something here. I'm assuming something. We have a little bit less than 2 minutes. King e3, king d5, pawn a4, king c5, pawn a5, king b5, king d4. If he takes you pawn, you have a passed pawn. True. Absolutely. King e3, king d5, a4, king c5, a5. Yeah. But okay, king e3, let's say... Not fully convinced. Let's say h5. How do you refute h5? h5, gh. I suppose you could go king e4 back. But then king b5. It's very similar to the previous position. And I guess that's why it's important to to learn how to refute a line. Although you can't always do that. King e3, h5, gh, yeah, I don't know. King e4, king b5. a4, king b4. Maybe there's something here. King d4, f5, h5, h5, gh, a5, king a5, king c4. We force that. Maybe this is it. It's very forcing somehow. Okay. Wow. So either Sofia, you're a very strong player, or we know the alternative, but let's choose to believe the former. King e3, what a move. Okay. That's insane. Okay. I was just guessing towards the end. Because yeah. Let me try to learn this because it's insane. So you go back, then you go a4. And what did you gain? Okay, let's say we go a4 right away. f5 is a problem. h5 is also a problem. Okay, no, actually, let me go through this. King e3, what if h5? gh, king e4, king b5, king d4, f5, and now a4. Wow, that's such a detail. That's such a small detail. The reason why this is winning is because with the pawn on h5 and the pawn on h6, as in the previous line, look at this. Compare these two lines. So the reason, at least we found out why this was wrong. gh, king b5. The reason why this is a draw is because black is just in time, miraculously. What a lucky black. So this is a draw, but it wouldn't be if the pawn was on h4 and the black's pawn was on h5. Because then, like, black is just in time because it's, I don't know how to explain this. It's just diagonally perfect. And it takes white one more tempo to take the pawn. Like if the pawn was on h5, then obviously white is taking the pawn much quicker. So I guess that's the easiest explanation. But black is drawing by thin air. However, by playing king e3 and provoking black, like saying black, like forcing black to play, now this same line is winning because, yeah, we were taking the pawn right away in king d6. Insane. I was expecting that pawn advance on f5. I thought he would want to take the pawn on the a column and you would have the passed b. Okay. I just didn't have it. King e3 looks insane. I mean, obviously, these positions, these endgames are their own. You can't rely on your middle game principles of, you know, king in the sense, like centralizing your pieces is good. It's more like very concrete variations and pawn races. I just assumed, and this is obviously kind of I had the idea, but yeah, I assumed this was a draw as well. And but like even if you don't consider h5, like it's difficult to refute king d5. I mean, look at this. Like king b5, king d4, now we're winning. It's just completely... Okay, what about... I don't believe it. I still don't buy it. f5. Oh no, h5, yeah. Okay, this I remember. I remember this one. That's another good thing about putting the king on e3, that f5 is no longer check. Not that we were worried about it in this particular variation. Like this is completely winning. King d6. Okay. Now king d5. Okay, let's say g5. G5, h5. Okay, yeah, this one we knew. King d5, a4, king c5. This is the same story. Like black is frozen in the king side. Like white seems to be always closer to the pawn, and obviously the f pawn is running. And no one is stopping him. So g5 is out of the question, h5 is out of the question because of takes, takes, and king e4. I think that's one of the most difficult lines to reject. f5 is because of h5. So black can't push any of these pawns, meaning that black has to make a move with their king. If they go king b5 right away, king d4, f5, h5 is the same the same tactic. And if h5, we actually use the knowledge of the previous line and essentially just say skip f5, and essentially say a4. Isn't a4 winning as well? Yeah, it is. So we can also force it by pushing the pawn and going into this. It's the same idea. So once again, even after king b5, king d4, black still can't push any pawn. And if they move the king, they lose this pawn. So yeah, it's Zugzwang. So king e3, king d5. The most difficult variation to me is if a4, king c5. You go a5. You're not even threatening a6. You're not even threatening a6, which is insane. But okay, again, black is some sort of weird Zugzwang. Although h5 is now different. It's a different version of h5. gh. a6, king b6 now is forced. If not, we're promoting. Okay, yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, so once again, black can't push either pawn. And then, yeah. I'm being repetitive, but yeah, I really want to ingrain this in my brain. King d4. Okay, knowing all of that, why not a4 right away? Because of h5. Takes. I mean, yeah, let's just say takes to stick to what we know. Ah, wow. This is ugly. King b5 just is the same, but f5 right away. Wow. Wow. That's pretty insane. It forces another pawn race, but yeah. Ugh, this is ugly chess. It's just boring chess. I mean, not boring in the sense that it's boring, but like just very concrete. Oh yeah. You tried a lot of things that made a lot of sense that they didn't work. What chance did we have it? Yeah. No. But you understand why I'm doubtful of people. I have to be doubtful. I mean, especially if you like, it just takes you to see any YouTube live stream to see all of these all of the nonsense that people write on the chat. Okay, well, that was interesting. Thanks everyone thanks ducissasofia. I'm gonna write down your name as credit because you did find it. Ducissa. Okay, that took a while, but that was worth it. 3420, not 3430. There we go. Let's see how accurate we can do it. Okay, queen d6. I'm not going to look at chat from now on, obviously, to not spoil myself. But if I attempt it and I get it wrong, maybe I interact more like in the last one. Best of luck. What do we have here? At a first glance, it looks pretty easy. Black's pieces are all doing nothing except for the queen. But, you know, I mean, we're getting 94 with tempo with thanks to that queen on d6, so... Yeah, this looks pretty nice. 94 followed by f6. This is what I would play if I was completely running low on time. Let's see. 94 followed by f6. 94 followed by f6. There's bishop e7 as well. There's f6 right away. And that's about it. f6 right away. Yeah, it's interesting, but okay. It seems like it's just always going to be a better version to play 94. Obviously, in chess, there are exceptions and paradoxical moves, and all of that stuff. But so we shouldn't just completely eliminate f6 from the equation. But okay, 94 seems more natural. As I said, this is what I would play if I was completely forced to make a move. Black has several queen moves. If we truly want to see this as an engine, then queen d5, queen e5, queen c7, and queen d7 are the ones that make sense. So not that many, not as many as it looks at a first glance. It's essentially just black. Black just have 4 moves. There's also indirect defenses of the queen, such as g6, which is not a defending move, it's just a counter-attacking move. But after queen h6, both the queen and knight f6 are coming, or bishop f6, like everything is completely collapsing. So 94, let's see if we can reject one of these 4. For instance, queen d5. Queen d5 smells bad. Oh, I know what this is going to be about. 94 queen d5. This is where we find our first motive. We go knight f6. Obviously, black has to take. If not, we're winning the... Actually, it's black has to take. If not, we're playing queen h7 and mate. So gf. And queen h6. I think beautiful move. Because if you go bishop f6, queen f5. So by playing queen h6 first, you're not only threatening bishop f6, but after queen f5, you go queen f8, king f8, bishop h6, king g8, rook e8, typical motive. So 94, queen d5, knight f6, gf, queen h6, and it's completely game over. Completely game over. Because how do you stop both bishop f6 and queen f8? Bishop anywhere, bishop f6. It's gonna be mate. If there was no pawn on c6, black would be able to play bishop b7, stopping queen f8, and stopping bishop f6, because queen g2 would be a threat, but obviously there is, thank goodness, that pawn on c6, helping us out. Let's just, yeah, I'm just double checking that's completely winning, and I think it is. I think, yeah. So that's completely winning. Black probably will have to play queen d6, after which bishop f6, queen f6, and we're winning. So 94, queen d5, knight f6. 94, queen e5. So now we only have these 3. I think probably, maybe rather than continuing with queen e5, queen d7 probably runs into the same... no, actually no, knight f6, gf, queen h6, simply fg. No, f6. But okay, obviously with the queen on d7, we're no longer threatening this mate, because the queen is protecting e8. So 94, queen d7, we don't have to... It does have some independent value, but after knight f6, gf, I think queen h6 continues working for a different reason. Obviously, we're threatening bishop f6. Once again, if we take bishop f6 right away, queen f5 is a problem. So queen h6 first, threatening bishop f6, and if queen f5, now queen f8 is a problem again. And how does black stop all of this stuff? Rook e8. Rook e8 does have some... it does look a little bit annoying. We have rook g1, queen f5, bishop f6, queen g6. Okay. 94, queen d7, knight f6, gf, queen h6. Rook e8 could potentially be a problem. Knight e4, queen d7, knight f6, gf, queen h6, rook e8. So knight e4, queen d7 doesn't look easy to refute either. So I'm going to put it on the same box as queen e5. And let's say queen c7. Queen c7 does look pretty bad. Like knight f6, gf, bishop f6, and then how do you stop queen g5? Like, yeah, this one is easy. There's bishop f5. But then I think queen h6 is the easiest. Queen h6 followed by queen g7 pre-move. Okay, well, queen g3, hg. Okay, knight e4, queen d7, queen e5. We've narrowed it down to only 2 moves. We have spent 7 minutes, approximately. Okay. 6 minutes to be a little bit more accurate, but let's see now. Knight e4, queen d7. Or should we start with queen e5? I'm not sure which one to start with. I think queen d7 is... I want to start with queen d7. I think you could start with either. I think queen d7... Or maybe the reason why I'm starting with queen d7 is because I think I can refute it quicker than queen e5. So following that principle of sweeping all the nonsensical moves first... And yeah, I'm just a little bit disappointed that knight f6 doesn't work. Knight f6, gf. And yeah, it doesn't work. Queen d7. Knight f6, gf. Queen h6, rook e8. Rook f1, queen f5, because we have back rank issues. So rook g1. Juicy me, thanks for subscribing. Interesting name. Knight e4, queen d7, knight f6, gf, queen h6, rook e8, rook g1, queen f5. That's a problem. Bishop f6, bishop, queen d6. Knight e4, queen d7. Knight f6, gf. Knight e4, queen d7. Okay, maybe queen d7 is actually the move that is more difficult to refute. That's actually making me consider bishop e7, but actually, never mind. There's rook e8. I think rook e8 is a problem. Like f6, queen f6. So, I think it has to be knight e4. And you're gonna say, well, David, you could make play knight e4 if you truly think this, and then you make your life much easier because then Lichess is gonna make a move, one of these moves, but then that's not how it works in real life. Like, you know, this is a white to play and win, but in a real game, you would have to obviously consider all of them. Knight e4, queen d7. Yeah. Queen h6 right away, but then gh doesn't work. It doesn't work. Queen d7. Obviously, anything else, like if we allow black to play f6, it's the end. I don't see any. I don't see this being a position. Like I don't see white being still winning after allowing f6. The whole point. And the whole reason, and we ran out of time. I'm gonna give myself 5 more minutes. The whole reason why white is winning is because of some f6 stuff. We have to seize the initiative. Knight e4, queen d7. Let's see. We're gonna seize it right now. Although I don't see it completely honestly. I don't see it. But okay, f6. Let's try f6. There's queen f5. There's queen g4. Queen g4 is a problem. Queen g4. Yeah, there's nothing. Okay, so knight e4, queen d7, f6 doesn't work. Bishop f6, queen f5. That doesn't work either. Knight f6, gf. What am I missing? Am I missing something very basic? I don't think so, no. I think queen d7 is very depressing. Like, I don't see anything. I do not see anything. Bishop e7, rook e8. Let's go back to this. Knight e4 now, rook takes e7 or queen takes e7. Queen takes e7 maybe a little bit more logical. Knight e4, queen d7. No, it has to be that. Although in a real game, I would be assuming that I'm lost, actually. I don't have enough counterplay to compensate for the lack of material. Knight f6, gf, queen h6, rook e8. What am I missing there? Is it a super move? Could be. Could be something completely out of everyone's mind. Knight e4, queen d7, knight f6, gf, queen h6, rook e8. Only move. I like that. I like that this is the only way. Rook e4. Ah, rook e4. Because if rook takes, d takes, and we're still threatening bishop f6. Wow. Knight e4, queen d7, knight f6, gf, queen h6, rook e8, rook e4. And the idea is actually defending f5. So that black doesn't have access to g6. Queen f5, queen g6, stopping the lolly mate. What am I saying? Oh no, actually it does work. It does work. I thought rook takes, sorry, rook takes, pawn takes, queen e8, bishop f6, queen f8 stops the mate, but queen g5. So 94. And it makes sense. I mean, we're lucky that there's nothing else that kind of looks like it's working. By the way, queen e5, how do we refute this? Just to be very complete. Knight f6 cashing in right away, I think, works if black takes with the pawn. If they take with the queen, bishop, so knight e4, queen e5, knight f6, queen f6, bishop f6, gf6, and I think we have potentially some sort of rook e4, king h8, because we're threatening queen g4 and queen h6, so king h8, and then queen h6. That looks completely winning. There we go, nice. Okay, let's catch up with people. That's a Latin word. Ducissasofia. It's a cool username. Although I'm not that, I guess, strict with usernames. Like, I did just kind of compliment someone with juicy me. Hello, are you blind? What a nice way of starting a conversation. Just use stockfish. It is easier to solve. Yeah, this is what I was telling you guys. Now I have to do work. Yeah. And there we go. What was the command? I think I can do this. No. Does this work? Okay. So what was that? That was... (5017) puzzle 3. Oh, there we go. Let's reset the timer. Best of luck, people. For those of you who are pausing your videos / live stream. Okay. Completely different position, obviously. Rook f3. So first things first. First things first, if it was white to play again, what would they play? Obviously, rook takes e3, but is there anything crazier over here? I don't think so. Queen e8 is obviously under control. Queen b7 is nothing. c6 potentially. But even that is pretty slow. Candidate moves. Queen e2, rook f3. Queen e2 and rook f3. That's about it. Let's try rook f3 first. Actually, Queen e2 is also very forcing. Rook f3, gf3 is very bad. Looks very bad. I think we can probably play Queen e2. We're completely winning. Because rook f3, gf, Queen e2, rook g1, Queen f3 check. If they were rook g2, we have rook e1 followed by king h2, Queen f4. Completely winning. And if they go king h2, rook e2 right away. And if they go king g1 to defend the rook, because if the rook moves anywhere, like we just go queen takes f3 and we're winning. So rook f3, gf3, queen e2, king g1, rook e5, followed by... We're not blundering anything in the back rank. Actually, even easier f6, because rook e5 allows queen d7 potentially. So just f6. It's actually not every day that you see f6 being a winning move. So that's a pretty nice kill. Rook f3, gf3 obviously is stupid. So let's move to rook takes move on to rook takes f3. If rook takes f3, queen c1, king h2, rook e1 is a typical pattern. How does white stop rook h1? They move the g pawn, immediately rook e2 followed by rook takes f2 is mate. How do they stop rook h1? Rook f1. Because obviously queen e8 right away, rook takes e8. But rook f1, if rook takes f1, queen e8. But now it becomes a question of, does white have a perpetual? Because I thought it was mate immediately, but there's king takes a7, although queen a4, king b8, queen e8. And then the answer to the question I think is probably yes. That's a perpetual for sure. Rook f3, queen c1, king h2, rook e1. Rook f1, only move. And maybe we're like, this is the problem. Now it becomes a little bit difficult. So, where can we improve? Aha, this is where we can improve. We triangulate. We actually take the queen to a1 in order to prevent queen a4, and therefore it's not a perpetual. So rook f3, queen e1, king h2. We were calculating queen c1 before, by the way, but now queen e1, king h2. Why? Because now we have queen e5. g3 is never working because there's like check, and then if king g1. Okay, even easier, if g3, queen e2 check, and we pick up the rook, and there's no checks for white. So back to this, queen e5, king, back to the position after queen e5. King h1 is easy because that gives us what we want right away. Queen a1, king h2, rook e1. If rook f1, rook takes f1, queen e8, king takes a7, and there's no longer queen a4 because there's queen takes a4. Which means that after queen e5, king g1 is a little bit more challenging because after queen a1, there's rook f1, which may have some independent value. Let's try to figure this out then. So queen e5, king g1, but there we go. We go queen d4 first. Now we're forcing king h1. No, actually, sorry, king h2. And we're not getting queen a1 with tempo. So never mind. False alarm. Queen d4, king h2, but then rook e1. I shouldn't have stopped calculating so soon. Then rook e1, and we're winning. I'm gonna rush for this one because I want to tuck in another puzzle. I think this is it. Queen e1, strong move. Queen e5, and then queen d4. Because if king h1, now we get queen a1 without worrying about any rook f1. As I said, if you go queen a1 right away, rook f1 I think is a problem. So queen d4 first. Rook king f1 is made in 2. After queen a1 and queen e1. Queen d4, if rook f2 we have rook e1. And we pick up the rook and there's still no checks. And if they go king h2, then rook e1. And you have to stop queen g1 mate. There's only one way to do that. Okay, there's two. Queen e8 check is sacrificing the queen. And if rook f1, which is more logical, we go queen e5 first. Queen e5 check. Ah, no. Oh, yeah, it works. Queen e5 check first. King g1, queen e3. And only then we take the rook. And obviously, the point of giving a check first is to keep e8 under control. So it's queen d4, right? Let me not... There we go. So the reason is rook e1, rook f1, and we go queen e5. Very important move, only winning move. And then queen e3. Once again, only winning idea. And only then you take the rook. That was smooth. Let's hope we get more of those. What do you think of the standard English opening with a fianchetto Dave? I'm assuming g3, bishop g2 rather than b3, bishop b2. I'm not the person to ask when it comes to that. I only get that potentially with the black pieces. I think it's very serious. I mean, if I know people that have a very easy repertoire by playing the dragon, the accelerated dragon with the black pieces, which is essentially the same, c5, g6, bishop g7, but colors reversed. I think it's very serious. If you're talking about c4, b3, then I'm completely out of track. You're not understanding this position. Well, that applied to me yesterday. Okay, let's reset the timer. We're somehow making a comeback. I'm gonna try to reach 3,000, but that's... I don't want to say that. As soon as I say it, it becomes kind of a responsibility rather than something you want to do for fun. Okay, let's reset this. Best of luck. Let's get going. So we have... I don't want to call it an end game because it still more resembles more of a middle game, I think. Active ideas. Tough? I mean, how do we... okay, there we go. So obviously you want to include this rook. If you could teleport that rook anywhere, obviously you would go d8. And technically, like, you could also teleport it to h8, right? If it's possible, and you're gonna ask, well, how on earth is this possible? Well, rook h2. So that's the only active move you have. King g4 is the thing that I was trying at the very, very first. Like, the very first thing I was trying. But then rook b2, and it's game over. So rook h2 is the absolute only move. We could make that move knowing that leeches is going to give us, you know, a certain variation and making our life easier, but we're going to try to visualize everything before. That's the best practice. If you're serious for chess, obviously, if you're just here for entertainment, that's not the case. Okay. Rook h2 threatening rook h6, followed by rook h8 and rook h7. So obviously that's four moves in a row. But I don't see how black could like, if it was white to play again after rook h6, I don't see how black stops that idea of rook h8 and rook 6 h7 mate. So black, we have to now work hard for the opponent because it's not obvious. How does black defend that super threat? Maybe king f8. Actually, after this, let's say it was white to play again and we play this. King f8 then would be the problem. Okay, well then, in that scenario, I guess we just go g7. It's not easy, actually. Check, king e7, and then g7. There we go. So, rook h2, king f8, I expect. And then rook h8. Because if king e7, g7 either way. But then black is going to try to sacrifice a rook for the pawn. Is that possible? Rook h2, king f8. Rook h8, king g7, obviously rook 2 takes h6, and good luck stopping mate. So king f8, rook h8, king e7, g7 is completely game over. How do you stop g8 queen? How do you... You can't even sacrifice a rook for the pawn. So that's good news. Let's try rook b8. Rook b8, rook takes, king f8, rook h8, and then we take that rook and c2. Maybe that's it. Somehow that's winning a tempo. Pretty weirdly. Rook b8 first. Rook takes, king f8. Looks super wrong. Looks like it's losing in 1,000 different ways. But let's just finish it off. So it's white to play in that position. Rook h2, rook b8, rook takes h6, rook 2 takes h6, king f8, rook h8, king e7. We could throw in a check, or we could take right away. c2. Let's throw in the check now. King d6. Let's go rook d8, king c6, rook c8, king b5. We take, and then we go rook h1 back, and we're easily winning. So yeah, I don't see how black refutes this. Am I missing something obvious? Rook c7, rook b7, g4. I'm aware that there are g4 stuff, like for example, or h5 maybe. Not g4, king takes. What about c2? c2 I haven't considered. Takes. c1, it's simply mate. I don't know. Rook b7, that's mate as well. But then rook b7 right away maybe. Rook h2, rook b7, the idea is if we take, then c2. And now we don't have the mate. Obviously, rook b7, we would want to transpose rook h8, king d7, rook 2 takes h6, but the magic about playing rook b7 right away rather than c2, allowing rook 2 takes h6, is that after rook h8, black obviously just takes. So rook h2, rook b7, what a resource. So we should be proud of that. I think that's the very first thing you should be doing after finding rook h2, like really working hard for the opponent. It's not as easy to find a move like rook b7 for your opponent compared to if you were playing with the black pieces. I think it's easier to find it if you were playing with the black's perspective. But okay, rook h2, rook b7, following on. Rook b7, the idea is now that c2. And where's the winning move there? Or what do we do? What do we do? Rook h2, rook b7. We could take with this rook. Rook 7 takes h6, but what has changed? What has changed? Obviously, if c2, we have rook check and then check, so that's the trick. And if how does black stop rook h8? Rook h7. King f8. King f8 is never working. Rook h8, king e7. That even that might even transpose into the previous line, but there's actually a very nice line. Rook h2, rook b7, rook 7 takes h6, king f8, rook h8, king e7. I think we can even go rook 2 to h7, check. King d6. Rook d8, check. Force this king c6. Rook c8. Oh, okay, never mind. There's king d6 back. I'm blundering this. Am I? I don't think so, actually. King d6, we go rook takes c4 regardless because the rook is defended. But then dc. If the rooks get traded after dc, I have king e2 just in time. I think I'm winning easily. But then if dc right away, that may be a little bit complicated. So this, rook b7, rook takes h6, king f8, rook h8, king e7. Okay, what about g7? Just g7. c2, rook takes c2. Yeah, that's it. Okay, g4. So what's the difference of all of those moves? I mean, obviously there's the fact that in some positions you did want king e2, but I don't think we actually depended on it. I think we found alternative ways. My real question here is, isn't king g3, king f4 also winning? That's my real curiosity here. Like, it's hard to believe there's only one winning move here. And I was almost gonna, like, I was assuming king g4 was one of those, right? Like, just take the pawn. But okay, this is interesting now. This is actually pretty shocking. King g4. What? Why? How could this be wrong? Rook b7, rook 6 takes h6. So, rook 7 takes h6. What am I saying? King f8. Check. King a7. Check. King g4. Actually, yeah, that's not clear. King f8. Check. King e7. Now all of a sudden after g7, there might be... Nah, no, g7 also looks winning. King d6, g8. Rook g7, queen g7. Yeah, no, king g4 looks winning. But why king f4 now? Like, why not king f4? Maybe it has to do with rook b2 stuff. Okay, sorry. I mean, king e2, obviously rook b2, by the way. I should have said so. King anywhere over here is wrong. But king g3, king f4, and king g4. I would assume all of them are winning. But king f4, let's say rook b2. Rook takes. Rook check. King g4. But then maybe the... So for example, king g3, rook b2, rook here, king f8, rook h8, king e7, g7. And some sort of c2. But then g8, and that's winning always. Why is this? Timer is over. I'm aware that some people have written some stuff. I'll definitely check it out as soon as we finish this. Wow. I mean, there's definitely something we're not seeing here. King g4. Rook b2. Rook takes. By the way, h5 is never anything. Like, so king g4, rook b2, this. Rook g2. Maybe it's rook g2, king f3, rook g6. I know, it could be. But there's rook h8, forcing king f7, then we take with check. Yeah, that's super hard to believe. But then king g7, and maybe it's not... We don't have any mate, like we're not mating. Maybe we are. King g4, c2, king f5, c1, and then mate. But okay, long variation, right? So more likely that something went wrong here. My question is, why on earth is king g3 not working? Okay, let's say they use their idea of going rook b7. Or rook c7 is never equal as rook b7, because rook c7, rook takes c7 is controlling the pawn. So rook b7, rook takes b7, c2 is a real problem, because then white has to sacrifice one of the rooks. So king g3, rook b7, rook 7 takes h6, king f8, as we concluded, that's the only way to stop the rook h8, rook h7 mate. But then I think this is one of the first things that we calculated. Rook h8, king e7, and we can simply something. We can simply check king g3, rook b7, rook takes, king f8, check this. We can simply go g7, I think that was it. We can simply go g7. And we're winning. Maybe there's an insane stalemate idea I'm missing, but with this pawn on a4, that's never going to happen. King g3, rook... But I think the real reason why king g4 doesn't work is because rook b2. If this, kind of the only move, rook g2 check. King f3, rook g6, fg, c2. Actually, why not king f4 then, if I'm going to want to play king f5? Let's say king f4. Yeah, I just refuse to believe that's somehow saving black. I refuse. King g4, rook b2 takes. We're completely winning. King f8. Okay, maybe king f8. Check. Okay, those arrows are making me dizzy. King g4, rook b2 takes. King f8. Check this. g7 is already... Yeah, okay, king g3 to prevent those rook b2 ideas. Why not king f4? Because maybe g3... Okay. King f4, why not this? Rook b7. Rook 7 takes h6. Threatening mate. So king f8. And then check. And then king e7. And then g7 is winning. So why not king f4? g3. Now we simply take. But okay, king g3 makes more sense than king f4. King f4, one of those is not working. I'm gonna give myself 5 more minutes. One of them is not working. And that's pretty interesting. King f4, rook b2, rook 2 takes h6. And there's an extra check. Ah, there we go. King f4, rook b2. Rook 2 takes h6, rook f2. King g3, rook f5. So king g3 for that reason. Wow, that one I didn't see. Amazing how you can spend tons of time calculating and still miss something. But okay, I mean... okay. F takes e6, c2, e7. Rook c8. Rook takes c2. Should be more than enough. F takes e6. What is white threatening? Simply e7. What is surprising about this position is that there's only one way for white to win. Like you would think that everything is winning. Rook 2 takes h6, but then rook e3. King g2, rook e2, king f1, king f8 is the problem. And obviously I'm not calculating all of these endgames, resulting endgames after you check, and then like you take material, but then you sacrifice your own rook. Like that's obviously, like in a real game you would have to, it would be more difficult because you would be trying to evaluate all of these resulting endgames. But in this case, I don't know, f6, fe6, we're up a rook. The only way for black to find counterplay is c2. But then we have e7, promoting our own pawn. And after rook c8, we can simply take the pawn, so yeah. Okay, I need to go to the bathroom. I'll leave you guys to this. Let me just write this down. And actually, let me just first see what you guys wrote. Queen f4. Queen f4 after rook f1. Hello, Armandev. For king f8, you first can give rook f7, check, and then take h-pawn, threatening mate. Yeah, but after rook f7, they always go back to g8. So for example, I think it was some rook b1, not rook b2. Wow, okay, it has the same idea, but okay, yeah, still poor by us. But the idea here is to go rook g1. Now, you were probably talking about a variation like this, where black goes rook b7. The rook 7 takes h6, only move. Okay, rook b7 also works. c2, where's the win? Check. Oh, wow, very elegant. Threatening h7 mate. Oh, wow. I've never seen a motive like that. Look at this. We actually had the chance of taking, and it took a while to the, you guys can rewind the stream. It took a while for Stockfish to figure this out. That's how you know this is truly beautiful. Takes, if c2, well, rook h6, you would think rook h6 works because that simply transposes, right? Like this, and mate. But rook c8. So you actually have to give this check first. But obviously then you have this new line that you have to figure out, but then rook b7. Thanks to this pawn, everything works out, and the tempo that it takes for black to empty g5, the tempo that white gains, how on earth is king f4 not working here? The tempo that white gains to stop king g5. King f4 doesn't work because of rook d4, and then black promotes with check, so yeah. This is a truly beautiful variation. This is the gems that you find when you do postmortems in puzzles. But okay, our move also worked. And yeah, so what you were thinking about is king f8 stuff. Or I think it was c2 takes king f7. And here the reason why we, like the way we rejected this, I think was... How did we reject this? Check, 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 check. Okay, that was completely wrong then. But okay, I'm not sure this is actually the variation I gave to my saving, to my remorse. In my defense. But rook f7 king g8 is the problem. But you can always repeat, so. Not making progress though. Rook d7 is the winning move because rook h8 is a problem. Ah, wow. And now we use Shantano's idea of rook f7. That is pretty elegant. And this always forces this mate. Oh, okay. This is just a mate in the next move. Very, very beautiful geometry. Very beautiful. Rook f7 mate. Like this is obviously rook h8. Threatening rook h8 mate, so king g8 is the only other possibility, but then runs into another mate. So what I will do is I will leave you guys with Lichess TV while I come back from the bathroom. Is this just in 10? Just quickly. Yeah. UK based. Okay, see you guys soon. Well, hello. Okay. So let's go back to puzzles. Let's see. So we're getting closer. Let's see if we can. Let's see if we can do it. Okay, 56, puzzle number 5. Best of luck. Timer is on. So surprisingly similar position to the very first puzzle we got today. When it comes to candidate moves, obviously FE4 is up at the very top number 1. I don't see anything else. When it comes to material, before we start, we completely move on into calculating. Material wise, we are up a pawn, but it's evident, it's clear that we're going to lose that pawn on the next move, especially after the line like fe4, fe4, king e4, king c4, which takes us to calculating. Like, okay, in terms of candidate moves, as I said, I don't see anything other than fe4. Would be very hard to believe king e3 is working here, but after our mistake of the very first puzzle, who knows? So let's not completely linearly go into fe4, f takes e4 only, but okay, I think this is principled. I mean, I don't see anything else. F takes e4. Black, it's hard to believe black has any other candidate moves other than f takes e4 back, taking back the pawn. And then I think that's where the position, the exercise truly starts. fe4. Black doesn't have anything else other than fe4. If not, we're threatening to take, and actually that's not easy. fe4, let's say, but then how does black spend, like, wait a move? They don't have a waiting move. Like, for example, g5, ef5, and now they can't take back. If h5 takes h4, and we're completely winning because black has to make a move with their king. And we start coming in. If they go king c6, king d4, king d6, sure, they have the opposition, but then c5. So yeah, that's nonsense. Obviously, black is not going to h5. So fe4, black needs to take. And after king e4, if black makes any other move other than king c4, we're simply going to defend that pawn. So it makes perfect sense to... Actually, wait a second. fe4, fe4, king e4, g5, king d3, h5. We are put in a tough position. I think this is probably a draw. Because g4, h4, h4, g4. So after g5, I guess g4, and we're getting in some sort of same version of king takes c4, which is the move, the actual move we have to sort out. The more logical king c4, obviously. So after king c4, the question becomes... Is black in time? And I don't think he or she is. F takes c4, f takes c4, king takes c4, king takes c4, king e5. King e5 with the idea of... Actually, it's just the idea with shouldering the king. Because now, obviously, as soon as black plays h5, there's h4, g5, g4, which, by the way, would directly transpose into fe4, fe4, king e4, g5, g4. So that is pretty convenient. fe4, fe4, king e4, king takes e4, king e5, king c3, king d5 is the idea. Because after king b2, we have king c4. And sure, black does have king a3, but then king b5. So black eventually ends up having no waiting moves. fe4, fe4, king e4, king c4, king e5. Looks like a scary move because it's kind of ignoring black's counterplay, but it's not. It's just waiting until black goes king c3 so we can go king d5. And obviously, yeah, let's address the elephant in the room, if you can say that when you're calculating variations in chess. After king b2, king c4, or even, that's a worse version for black, because king a2, king takes b5, maybe this is fine. But yeah, the elephant in the room is after king c3, king d5, king b2, king c4, king a2, king b4. Are we winning in that position after king b2? And I don't think we are, now that I think about it. King c4, king c2, king d4, king d2, king e4, king e2, king f4, king f2. And if I ever go king e5, king f3. So fe4, fe4, how can we stop doing, like, how can we prevent that? Ooh, don't tell me it's going to be some sort of another king e3. I saw a message on the chat. I don't want to see it because I don't want to spoil myself. I'll definitely check it out after this. fe4, fe4, king e3, king c4, king e4. What has changed? King c3, king d5, king b2, king c4, king a2, king b4 is the same. fe4, fe4. Yeah, it's not easy. fe4, fe4, king e4, king c4, king e5, king c3. King d5, king b2, king c4, king a2, king b4, king b2. Wow, maybe actually it is winning. So after I have a king on b4, I just took a pawn, and my pawn goes king b2. We go king c4, king c2, king d4, king d2, king e4, king e2, king f4, king f2. By the way, if black played g5 in like before, or h5 before, so for example fe4, king e4, fe4, king e4, king c4, king e5, and played, or even better, fe4, king e4, h5 or g5, forcing g4 or h4 from white, then we would get that version of, let's say, king e4, king e2. And if black plays forced g5, or I should say included g5, g4, it would be white to play. And white would play king f5, king f3, king g6, king g3, king e takes h6, and king h5 at the end, winning. And if the pawn, like the inclusion was h5, h4, then the winning sequence would be not obvious, actually. Actually, it is obvious. King f4, king f2, g4. hg, king g4, king e3, king g5, king e6, king e4, king g6 is winning easily. Wait a second. hg, king g4. It's a draw. What am I saying? King g2, king g5, king g3. So g4 is not winning. I lied. Obviously not on purpose, but I was wrong. So h5, h4 is something to watch out for more. fe4, fe4, king e4, h5, h4, king c4, king e5, king c3, king f6, king b2. No, that's never. So king c3, king d4, king b2. Obviously b3 is a worse version. Like black's king is much further away. So king b2, king c4, king a2, king b4, king b2 seems to be the best version black can get, because white's king is equally, still pretty far. King c4, king c2, king d4 until e4, e2, and then we have to be precise. What am I saying? After king d4, king d2, king e5, king e3, let's say, king f6, king f3, king takes g6, king g3, king g5. Yeah, I mean, it's intuitive. Like you don't have to calculate everything. You should be able to tell that with a king on b4 and with a king on b2, somehow, and if the structure is fixed, somehow white will be able to pick up black's pawns. And the actual calculation behind it is king c4, king c2, king d4, king d2, king e5, king e3 or king e2, it doesn't matter, king f6, king f3, king g6, king g3, king g5, protecting the pawn. King h5 as well protects the pawn, but king g5 also wins. So fe4, fe4, king e4, king c4, king e5, king c3, king d5. I think it's best for black to keep the tension and keep the pawns like this. So don't fix anything. Or is it? Or is that true? Not sure if it's true. Yeah, I think it is true. It's trickier, but then we win in a different way. After king e4, king e2, king f4, king f2, let's say. Obviously black can go king d3, but then king e5. King e5, and then let's say king e3. I don't know. No, we have to watch out. Maybe not king e5 right away. Maybe first something like h4 or g4. g4, king d4. h4, king d4. g4, king d5, h5, gh. gh, king e6 is drawing. By the way, there's no other line other than this. Like, it's by method of elimination, we have to go for this, because I saw that the timer is off. Like, we ran out of time. fe4, fe4, king e4, king c4, king e5, king c3. Maybe this is it. Maybe actually we play something like... I'm not sure, but like either g4 or h4 as a waiting move rather than king e5 as a waiting move. So for example, king g4, king c3, king d5. If black ever moves any pawn, that always makes it easier to attack at the portion where both of our kings are on b4 and b2 consecutively. So fe4, fe4, king e4, king c4. Let's say g4, king c3, king d5, king b2, king c4, king a2, king b4, king b4, king a2, king b4, king b2. This dance until... but maybe after king d4, king d2, king e5, king e3, king f6... King f3 is no longer attacking a pawn because it's defending on g4, so I can go king g6. I'm not completely winning. So fe4, fe4, king e4, king c4, g4 seems to be working. However, why is h4 not working? Isn't this the same? King c3, king d5, king d2, c4, king a2, this. It's not working. Obviously not. King d4, king d2, king e5, king e3, king f6, king f3. So it only worked with g4. Wow, isn't that interesting? And the reason is that with g4, with h4, the pawn is defended in a place, in a square that is near the black king, but by putting the pawn on g4, black has to spend one more tempo, first eliminating h3 and then taking on g4. Okay, I'm not a genius. What if g5 after g4? Maybe that's the reason. Why is g4 not working? Wow, it's h4. Okay, give me a second. Why? Okay, you were completely right. But why? Ah, king c5. Wow, okay. I was assuming this would be, and this is indeed winning. Wow. Wow, king b5. Not king c4. Okay, this is some Dvoretsky stuff. This is insane. Look at this. This is some, like, how do they call this? Correspondent squares. So if you go king f6, king b5 is the only win, the only way to draw. Because then it's essentially forcing. Wow, okay. If you go king c4, king e6, and then you, as black, you're getting shouldered. So eventually you will end up in a situation where, like, yeah, white is simply, it's going to be a race, but white is quicker. Or something like this. Or wherever you go, I mean. And you're going to get shouldered like this. And this is the race I was talking about. And it's always going to be winning for white because white is up a tempo. So, what? That's insane. That's why after king f6, king b5 is the only move. King c4 would be falling into king e6, transposing it to what black wanted to prevent. So king b5, king e6, king c6 is the only move. Wow. That's just completely insane. But I didn't even see, like, king c5 is just very difficult to consider. But now this is much quicker because because of the same reason actually that we wanted to put our pawn on g4 and our pawn on h3. With the structure like this, white spends one more tempo having to take this guy and then g5, and only then they can start pushing. But obviously this way changes everything. I mean, we can transpose with king e6, by the way. This is also a win. Wait a second. Yeah, it is also a win. And after king b5, essentially saying, look, I'm not going to get shouldered. That's what black is saying. I'm not going to get shouldered. Now this brute force variation of the pawn race is completely winning because we start pushing our pawn much quicker. Oh, wait a second. Oh, yeah. It's disgusting. What is it? Oh, yeah. It's just forcing the queens off. Yeah. I thought it was going to be a theoretical winning queen endgame. So yeah, that was disgusting. Insane. g4 fails to win because of king c5. But h4 works. However, what happened after this? That's my question. How is this winning? Okay. Why did I think this was somehow losing? Okay, give me a second. h4, h5, king e5. Okay, we're back to business. I think this was the variation. Okay, no, sorry, I'm stupid. That was silly. King e5 here, king e3. Yeah, what am I saying? Why did I reject h4? Because I was right. Like I was taking all the safety measures. I was at g4, g5 seems to be working. Why? But wait a second. Why would h4 not work? And I somehow had some flawed logic somewhere there. I just miscalculated. That was stupid. Yeah, wow is correct. That's mind-blowing. Shouldn't you move if f3, e4, is the only current move. Yeah, that's true, but if you rewind the stream back, I said... I mean, I've said it, maybe I didn't say it for this one actually. So I failed to say it in this particular position, but we should still visualize it. That's my philosophy, my school of thought. Okay, we got it wrong. That's life. So puzzle number 5, loss. Let's see. Let's go to the next one. 140. 30. No, 140. 40. Puzzle number 6. Best of luck, people. Let's reset the timer. We're doing kind of a big session, big puzzle session, because I really want to reach 3,000 so I can start naming the streams 3,000 to 3,100 to continue the quote-unquote series. Okay. Don't stop until it's 3,000, yeah. Yep. So material is uneven, or if you want to like the actual terminology is imbalanced. We are down the exchange, but we have a devastating attack, crushing attack in the king side. Queen f3 is the very first kind of move. I don't see anything other than queen f3 to be completely honest. Obviously, if the rook wasn't here and it was on f5, for instance, then knight f4 followed by queen h3 or queen f3 would potentially be a candidate move, which leads me to lines trying to move the rook, and but it's too slow, I think. Like rook f2, queen knight f2, it just doesn't work. Like knight f4, king g1. So queen f3 is the only move, I think. King h3, only move as well. And if we had a bishop on f6, rook h4 would be mate. And I repeat, if we had a bishop on f6, because my arrow was wrong, rook h4 would be mate. What if we try rook h4 right away? King h4 and that's it. Queen f3, king h3. Bishop f8. What's the idea? Bishop e7. Yeah, but that's threatening to threat, and that's very dangerous. For example, bishop f8, rook e3. And then, yeah, that's bad news. Or is it? Yeah, it is, it is. I was going to say rook h4, king h4. Queen f5, threatening bishop e7 mate, so g4. But then nothing. Queen f3, king h3. Rook f5. That's another candidate move. Bishop f8 looks insane. Rook f5 is the move, I think. Rook f5, threatening rook h5. How does white stop it? Excellent question. If knight g5, simply rook takes g5. And I think we could pre-move rook h5 and... I know there's rook e4. Queen f4, so just rook h5 regardless. And if queen h4, like we're winning the queen and we're up a bishop. So queen f3, queen takes h3. King takes h3, sorry. Rook f5. Knight g5 is a move. But I think we have a variety of ways to win. Even hg followed, like, and after rook e4. Something like... I think it's check mate, but okay. Like it's probably rook f6, for example. Threatening rook h6 and mate. So knight g5 seems to be not working. And knight f6 makes a little bit more sense, but then bishop f6, rook e4, rook h5, and the bishop is ideal on f6 because, yeah, rook takes h4 is mate. Is this a gift? Maybe this is an easy one. Rook f5. Okay, let's be careful with that type of thinking. There's nothing easy in this life, as they say. Queen f3, king h3, rook f5. g4 is illegal. King h4, rook h5. Knight d, like knight. knight moves that are not f6 or g5 are rook h5 mate, run into rook h5 mate. Let's just go back to knight g5 for a second. Knight g5, rook g5 seems... hg5 is the move I gave, I think. But why is rook g5 not working? And I repeat, queen f3, king takes h3, rook f5, knight g5. Rook takes g5, threatening rook h5 mate. The only move to stop it is rook e4. And then, yeah, maybe this is the trap. This is the only thing we should watch out for in this position. All of a sudden we're stuck. So the actual winning move is hg5. Threatening g4, king h4, bishop f6 mate. And if rook e4 in that position, we go rook f6. We go rook f6, and that is game over. Because we're threatening rook h6, rook h4, rook takes h4. After rook f6, white... Yeah, what does white do? Rook g4, rook h6, that doesn't change anything. Rook h4 right away. We can simply take and we're up a bishop. Didn't see this, which is a little worrying. But obviously g4, queen g4, rook h5 quickly jumps into our mind. Yeah, that was poor technically, like because we missed queen e4. But yeah, I was lucky. This is obviously this is not a good sign when you're missing moves, basic moves like queen e4. That was a quick one, thank goodness. So that was puzzle number 6. W. Let's reset the timer. 147. That was a quick one, really. Probably the quickest. So now we're puzzle number 7. I mean, that was easy. There's nothing easy in life, my friendo. There we go. Best of luck. Rook g3 is a very fast kind of move, but okay, let's hold our horses. 3 minor pieces. We're down a rook. Okay, we're down a rook. That's one of the first things that we should, I guess, take into account. Yeah, rook g3. Rook g3 is very logical, but then rook g7 maybe is the problem. Knight d5 is another candidate move. I feel like I've seen this position before. I've solved this puzzle before. But I'm not sure. Rook g3, rook g7, knight d5. I've definitely solved this before. Isn't that interesting? It happens from time to time. I wonder how big Leech's puzzles database is. I'm quite sure it's massive because it's an algorithm that gathers them from real games. In this case, Daniel Paraquedista and Gallagher. So, and even it even says what rhythm and all this information. So I wonder why. But back to the solving. Okay, rook g3. We're threatening the obvious bishop f6. If fg, rook g5 is completely game over. Rook g7, queen g7, bishop g6 just prolongs that. Other than rook g3, as I said at the beginning, I don't see any other candidate moves. Knight d5 could be a candidate move, like an additional option other than rook g3, but after cd, bishop d5, fg, for example, I don't see anything. I could take and go FG. Yeah, okay, that looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So maybe knight d5 is something to consider. Now, but obviously I want to make rook g3 work first, so that's my priority right now. Rook g3. Rook g7 is a problem, but then knight d5 then. Knight d5 looks crushing. We're threatening a discovered check. We're threatening the queen, actually. So cd is forced. Bishop d5. King f8 only move because bishop e6, bishop takes e6. What does that do? So bishop king f8. And there I think we have queen h8. Rook g8 runs into queen takes g8 simply, so king e7. And maybe bishop f6 in that position, because if knight f6, rook g7 is mate. And if king f6, queen g7 is mate. So bishop f6 is a strong move there. Rook g3, rook g7, knight d5. It's completely game over. cd, bishop d5, king f8, queen h8, king e7, bishop f6. I don't doubt queen g7 is probably winning. Okay, let's not entertain that idea. Like, bishop f6 is just game over. So, rook g3. Let's try rook h7 maybe. Rook g7 is out of the question. Knight d5 is crushing. And by the way, knight d5, if you go queen d8, for example, knight f6, knight f6, king f8, queen h8, king e7, queen g7. But there's probably 1,000 other ways. My heart stopped there for a second. I drank too much coffee. So rook g3, queen h7. Bishop f6, king f7. Rook g7. Yeah, that definitely looks a little bit tougher to refute. Rook g3, rook h7. Bishop f6, king f7. Okay, instead of bishop f6, knight d5. Rook g3, rook h7, knight d5. If they go rook takes h6, accepting the sacrifice, we might be in trouble. I'm thinking. I am thinking. Rook g3, rook h7. Bishop. Yeah, that's tough. Rook h7. If only I could somehow take tons of pieces at the same time. For example, rook g... Ooh, yeah, that was almost a mouse slip. Rook g3, rook h7, knight d5, rook h6. Somehow knight c7 check. If I could get a check taking this and then taking the rook at the end, then we would be... Actually, we'd just be upping up the exchange. But I guess it would be enough to win. Even that is not clear. But, you know, we're not taking that h6 rook with check either way, so it's not an idea worth, or not a variation worth entertaining. However, this is very interesting. I definitely have solved this before. I mean, okay, let's go back to the basics. I mean, rook g3, rook h7, bishop f6 is so natural. It's an only move, king f7. And then there's all sorts of fun things there to try. For instance, okay, that's not true. It's not like we have tons of things. We only have rook g7, rook takes g7, rook g7, rook takes g7, queen takes g7, king e8 is a problem, for example. Where is this? Ah, wow. Okay, no. I was gonna say bishop f6 move 1. Bishop f6 move 1 would have been pretty crazy. But even knight f6, rook g3, rook g7 works. Okay, maybe it's knight d5 move 1. Which is pretty surprising given that... Ah, no. Do you know what it is? It's knight d5, cd, and then rook g3. And now after, obviously, rook g7 just transposes, bishop d5, and then queen h8. Knight d5 cd, rook g3, rook h7. Obviously now there's bishop d5 check, because if you play rook g3 part without knight d5, the inclusion of knight d5 cd, rook g3 is premature, because after rook h7, knight d5, black doesn't have to take. Black can take rook takes h6. So knight d5 first, you force cd, and now you have that benefit in that variation. Of rook h7, you have bishop d5 check. And it's completely game over. King h8 is, I think, the only move. Obviously, bishop e6 just procrastinates the problem. So king h8, I would assume... It's still not easy, actually. Bishop f6, knight f6, queen f6, rook g7. And then, where's my win? There's no win. So I'm kind of celebrating impulsively then. Okay, if it's not that, then knight d5, cd5, rook g3, rook h7, bishop f6, king f7, bishop d5, bishop e6, queen h7 must be winning, and it is. Bishop e6, queen h7 is winning, king f6, queen g7, king f5, queen g5 mate. So knight d5, cd5, rook g3, rook h7, bishop f6 to not allow king h8, as we just saw. It's a problem. King f7, bishop d5, king e8 on the move. And we're close. Maybe rook e3? That looks amazing. That looks amazing because, okay, rook g8 is also possible, but then knight f8 stuff, so that's why I don't want to go for that. That's why I don't know what... Okay, rook e3, 95. What is happening? Good lord, what a move. Okay, knight d5 is definitely the answer. But we still have to finish off some stuff. Obviously, fg, knight c7, we're completely winning. It's not only that we're winning the queen, but then we're taking on f7 plus fg, and black is probably winning more. White is probably winning more material. Knight d5, cd5, rook g3, rook h7. Bishop f6, king f7, bishop d5, king e8, it's Ava, thanks for subscribing. Hello. Thank you. Rook g, knight d5, cd, rook g3, rook h7, bishop f6, king f7, bishop d5, king e8. And then that's when we should find the winning move. I'm not seeing it. Because unfortunately after rook e3... How on earth is this not made? 95 CD... Rook g3... Rook h7, very annoying. Bishop d5, king h8, insane. Insane that that's not working. Is there no finish after rook g7? Like, yeah. Doesn't seem like it. So yeah. 95 CD, rook g3. Oh, wait a second. I didn't even put the timer for this one. Okay, I'll give myself 5 more minutes. I forgot. I apologize, people. Rook g3, sorry, 95 CD, rook g3, rook h7, bishop f6 first, king f7. Okay, let's not go bishop 65 right away. Let's hold. Let's hold that one. Wow, has it been 2 hours already? Okay, I'm gonna change the battery back. Give me a second. Insane. There we go. Hello, Amina. How often do you stream? Every Saturday and Sunday and Wednesday at, what was it, 5? No, it was 6 p.m. BST, British Summer Time. So 6 p.m. London time, essentially. And 5 p.m. was it CET or... Let me check my channel very quickly. It's on the banner of my YouTube channel. GMT, 5 p.m. GMT. By the way, I see you're not affiliated. We have a Discord channel, yeah. It's dead, but I continue to hope at some point people are gonna be sharing PGNs of studies at some point of time. Affiliate, I'm not sure about affiliation. To be completely honest, I don't know. I don't know what that means. Thank you, Amina. Thank you. Knight d5, CD, rook g3, rook h7. Bishop f6, king f7, bishop d5, king e8. Yeah, it's very mind-blowing that knight d5 is not working. It's pretty tough. Rook g3, rook h7. So that's why we go knight d5 first. CD. What are we missing? Rook g3, rook h7. What are we missing? Knight d5, CD. Ah, okay, give me a second. I feel like I've said that 1,000 times, but bishop f6. Bishop f6, knight f6. Rook g3. Rook g7 is the problem. So knight d5 CD. Okay, let's go bishop d5. We haven't tried that. FG, FG. I mean, it's completely insane, but if knight b6, we have, I don't know what we have. Knight d5, cd, bishop d5, fg. Obviously, there's also queen g5 check, but I don't see anything against king f8. So knight d5, cd. What about bishop h4? Actually, yeah, I had the idea of simply moving the bishop, but I'm going always bishop f6, provoking knight f6, but then bishop h4. What about bishop h4? And by the way, what about bishop h4 move 1? Okay, that definitely doesn't work, but okay, knight d5, cd5, bishop h4. Let's go back to the basics, because bishop h4 is changing quite a bit, so we have to make sure that the old variations are still working. Knight d5, cd5, bishop h4 is an insane move. It's threatening rook g3. And after something like knight f8, rook g3, rook g7, bishop d5 check, knight e6. And then, yeah, it's not easy. I don't think it's working, actually. So yeah, bishop h4, I think is changing way too much. Way too much. I just can't believe it. So I'm gonna actually have to use, I'll have to use all 10 minutes, 10 extra minutes, because I forgot to set the timer for 10 minutes. And by the way, I know I'm not reading the chat, but then I'm scared that someone's gonna be writing the answer of this. That's why. 95, cd5, rook g3. 95, cd5, rook g3, or bishop h4. Bishop h4, knight f8 is the problem. So instead of that, bishop d5 right away. I think this is what we were talking about. On explored territory, fg. And we go fg, knight b6. But then we run out of fireworks, unfortunately. And we sacrificed 1,000 pieces on the way, so it's definitely not working. So, knight d5, cd5, bishop h4, and knight f8 is the problem. Rook g3, move 1, rook h7 is the problem. Bishop f6, king f7. So the inclusion of knight d5, cd5, rook g3, rook h7, bishop f6, king f7, bishop d5, king e8 is the problem. So we haven't fully got rid of it. And yeah, it's super annoying. It's just so close to working, but it's not. And I've definitely solved this before, which is funny. 95, cd5. I actually don't like the fact that I remember. It would be much better if I don't remember this, having solved this. And the reason is... what's the reason? The reason is, yeah, you start trying to remember rather than using logic. The same thing happens when you try to... When people try to memorize openings, you become completely useless chess player in general. Because then you start, once you're out of your opening preparation, which is gonna happen for sure, you can't play chess anymore. So, but yeah, I'm digressing, and we have less than a minute. I don't know, 95. I'm gonna give myself more time, even if I run out of time. So I'm gonna use my 5 extra minutes of kind of call a friend type of thing. 95 CD5. It's also when you try solve a same position for too much, you start getting confused, and you start like not looking at the position properly, because you've drawn certain conclusions, and I don't know. But let's not use excuses. But let's go back to something like Rook G3. I mean, it's just completely natural. It's insane. 95 CD5, Rook G3. Rook H7 is such a an annoying move. So Bishop D5 check first. At some point of this solving process, I was pretty happy. But then King H8. Then King H8, Bishop F6, Knight F6, Queen F6, Rook G7. And yeah. Like we can't, like Rook G5 is not threatening Rook H5 because there's Bishop F7, so in that final position, it just doesn't work. So Rook G3, right, like move 1. Rook H7. What am I not seeing? Bishop F6, King F7. No, 95 is always useful to include. Obviously, there's Bishop D5 as well, but I refuse to believe having the knight. Yeah, I mean, for example, Bishop D5, CD, Knight D5, FG, Knight C7. Sure, we do win the queen, but we sacrificed everyone. We don't have anyone left. Black has 3 pieces for a rook, or you could see it 4 pieces for the queen, including a rook. So 3 minor pieces plus a rook. So that's obviously more than enough. Let me reset the timer. I'm gonna give myself 5 more minutes. 30 seconds, man. I don't know what that means. I think I understand the frustration. You guys should be like, come on, make a move. Completely understandable. But I'm gonna go 5 more minutes, potentially. 95 CD. Rook G3, Rook H7. It could be a silent move. For example, 95 CD5, Rook G3, Rook H7, Bishop F6 first, King F7, Bishop D5, King E8, and then after Rook E3. It could be something like, okay, 95 has to be happen, because if Bishop E7, we go. Actually, it's pretty beautiful. Rook takes E7, Rook takes E7. Queen H5, insane move. King D8, Queen H8, insane move. Knight F8, Queen F8, and we're taking tons of material. So after 95, CD5, Rook G3, Rook H7, Bishop F6, King F7, Bishop D5, King E8, Rook E3. 95 is, I think, the only move. After which, I think we could go Queen G5. This is what I'm talking about, like the silent move. But, like, what on earth? This is insane. We're threatening Queen F5, I guess, but also FE5, obviously. I'm just scared of, like, what if Black simply go Queen C2, for example? Queen c2, I guess fe5, although queen g8 also becomes something, but fe5, let's start there. Bishop e7, let's say. And yeah, it becomes very chaotic. Knight e5, cd5, rook g3, rook h7. Somehow that's not easily winning. I've considered everything. Knight e5, cd5, rook g3, rook h7, bishop f6, king f7, bishop d5, king e8, rook e3, knight e5, let's say. And then if only I had a check with my queen rather than having to play, you know, queen g5, just simply moving it. Queen g5, queen c2, fe5, bishop e7. Okay, takes queen g8, or I could go queen g8 right away, king d7 and queen a8. Okay, I don't know, I have to make a move. Yeah, okay. It just becomes more like you can't fully calculate this. It's insane to fully calculate 95. But okay, queen g5 is correct. fe5 is correct. Wow. How on earth? Okay, you have to see bishop e7, but that's insanely long, and you have to start evaluating endgames. Like how, like you're yeah. This is winning for white because white has tons of pawns for the bishop, but not easy to evaluate that from afar. I think I'm lucky that there's queen g5, queen c2, fe5, bishop e7, queen g8, or bishop e7 first and then queen g8. But okay, queen g8 right away. If you have to force bishop f8, obviously that also looks good. Okay, first try. That took very quickly. I'm joking. Add me Discord. Yeah, I'll check it later. Bishop d7 seems good. Pin on the rook. Okay. $217. 38. Puzzle number 8. Are you guys ready? Best of luck. Timer is on. Time is ticking. The rook c1. After that, it seems like everything else should be, you know, relatively easy. Rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4. By the way, no, sorry. I mean, let me scratch that completely. Obviously, after that, you know, that's definitely not the toughest position we've ever solved. Yesterday is an excellent example of some completely monster puzzles. Now, rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4 is not easily winning as we would like it to, because black does have to worry about this pawn marching forward. Cadre moves, or I should say evaluation first. Well, we're down a couple of pawns. I think specifically we're down only 2, but it seems like more because these are doubled. Is that true? Actually, we're only down 1 pawn. We're only down 1 pawn. But it seems like 2 because these are doubled, and I mean, these 2 are monsters. So, I don't see anything else other than rook c1. I guess knight c2 is a candidate move. What is our threat? Knight a3? No, that's not true. You know, if we didn't have pawns and there was a way, like maybe this is one of those puzzles, especially with this structure where there's a super rook. Like let's say I didn't have a knight and I didn't have these 2 pawns, and my rook was on e2, right? So I'm down tons of material, but then I have rook g2 check, and no, sorry, I need white rook to be on c8 for that. Sorry, I forgot about that very important detail. But you guys get it. I'm trying to make a stalemate trick work. I digress, though. I digress. So how do we make this work? Rook c2 technically, you know, it looks very exciting, but what are we threatening? Let's say white completely ignores it with d5. Like rook g2, king h1, that's doing nothing. So yeah. Rook c1, bishop c1. It seems to be the only sequence to calculate here. The question becomes now, knight c2 or knight c4? So rook c1, bishop c1. My original idea was knight c4, so let's go through that. So for example, if it was black to play again, our threat is a4, d5, a3, bishop a3, knight a3, d6. Wow, even if we give black an extra tempo, that's not working. That's pretty depressing. Rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4. Even if it was black to play again, we wouldn't be threatening a4 because there's d5. And we seem to be very slow. So I guess at some point we'll have to play, even in this version where when we're up a tempo, we have to play king g8. And I repeat, that's pretty sad because I'm giving black an extra tempo. So knight c4, let's go back to reality. Obviously, black is not playing two moves in a row. Let's say white plays d5. Now we have to play king g8. If d6, I think we don't take. We keep that knight on c4 to keep that construction of a4, a3, a2. So we go king f7. And we stop the pawn like that. Just in time. So rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4. Back to what is black threatening. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but the answer now becomes very evident. Black is threatening a4. After d5, we do have to go king g8. But it's fine. Like d6, king f7. We stop that pawn. And then if white doesn't have a proper response to a3, a2, then we're completely winning. So rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4. d5, king g8, back to reality. King f2, let's say. Or d6, king f7, like, you know, king f2. D6, the inclusion of d6, king f7, and all of these lines can be considered in between. So obviously it could be king f2 or d6 first, king f7, and then king f2. You guys get it. Rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4. D5, king g8, king f2. a4. King e2, a3, king d3, a2 is winning. What is the trickiest white can play? Knight c4. How can white make our life impossible? Because it can't be this easy, right? Rook c1, knight bishop g1. Knight c4, king f2, a4, d5, king g8. Let's say e5, a3. It could be something like this. Look, rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4, d5. Oh, sorry. d5, king g8, d6, king f7, e5. But then king e6 maybe is a problem. So what white has to do is king knight c4, d5, king g8, e5, king f7. Even that. Okay, give me a second. I'm trying to get a position where, for example, knight c4, like let's say d5, king g8, d6, king f7, e5. Like obviously king e6 I think is winning there, but if you relax as black, all of a sudden there's d7, king e7 only move, e6, a3, and bishop f4. That's what I wanted to get. But wait a second, that's not even threatening bishop at d6. So maybe not bishop f4, but somewhere else. There's no somewhere else though. Okay, bishop f4, actually a2, and bishop c7 would be something to worry about. But thank goodness a1 is check. But even then, actually, king h2, what is happening? Okay, king h2, I think there's queen at e5, and sacrificing the queen for the bishop, and I think that should be potentially winning. But that's very close. So probably that's the winning idea the defensive idea that we have to watch out for. So for example, let's say d5, king g8, e5, king f7. e6, king e7, king f2, a3, bishop e3, but knight takes e3. Okay, king takes e3, a3. Yeah, they're never in time. King d4, a2, king. Yeah, that's nothing. Rook c, bishop c, knight c4. d5. King g8. I saw a message pop up. I'll definitely check it out after this. I don't want to spoil myself, in case some of you are finding the answer. Rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4. d5, king g8, e5, king f7, and then there's nothing. d6 we go king e6, e6 we go king e7, and white is just, it's impossible for white to get into the dark squares. For example, bishop f4, a4, bishop, yeah, how do you even do it? Bishop b8? That's very artificial. a3, bishop a7, a2, and by the time you get, but bishop d4. Aha. Wow, that's insane. Rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4. What if white does that right away? So d5, king f7, bishop f4. The idea is bishop b8, bishop a7, bishop d4 to stop the pawn. So we go a4, bishop b8, a3, bishop a7, but then we go b6. Yeah. So how did we get it? I just forgot to play b6 and the first time that I mentioned it. So d5, king g8, e5, king f7, e6, king e7, bishop f4, a4, bishop b8, a3, bishop a7, b6. And we're completely winning. Rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4. I don't see anything. Skedio, thanks for subscribing. Or following if you did it on Twitch. Knight c4. Okay, let's go back to king f2, a4, king e2, a3, king d3, a2 is winning. So, and I know we ran out of time, but let's give ourselves 5 more minutes, because we're closer to 3,000. That's why I'm breaking my rules. Usually I don't break my rules this much. Rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4, king f2, a4, king e2, a3, bishop a3, knight a3, king d3. Maybe that's a worry because our king is pretty out of play. But I don't know. I mean, king g8, d5, king f7, king d4, b6, e5. I think we could start taking, but okay, let's play king e7 for safety. That should be fine. Rook c1, bishop c1. Knight c4. I don't find any. I can't see anything. Bishop f4. Let's try again. a4, bishop g3. This time, white wants bishop e1 and bishop c3. Maybe that's it. So knight c4, bishop f4, a4, bishop g3, a3, bishop e1. And that's a problem. Nice, we found a problem. Who would have said we would be happy to find a problem? But here we are. No, it's a good sign because we obviously it's something to. Maybe this is the only way to draw as white, you know, and maybe this is the reason why knight c2 is better for some reason. But okay, rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4, bishop f4, a4, bishop g3. Yeah, it's annoying. Bishop e1 is coming. a3, bishop e1. Is there any way we can... I guess there's knight e3 there. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. Rook c1, bishop e1, knight c4, bishop f4, a4, bishop g3, a3, bishop e1, a2, bishop c3. We can allow bishop c3. We simply go knight a3. Or knight e3. I don't think there's any difference. They could go d5, but we always go king g8. D6, king f7. Okay. I guess we do have to watch out for some tricks. D7, king e7 looked scary for a second because there's wait a second. Rook c1, bishop c1, knight c4, bishop f4, a4, bishop g3, a3, bishop e1, a2, bishop c3, knight a3, d5, king g8, d6, king f7. Bishop g7 is possible, but then we simply ignore it because of knight c2. And it's just one tempo actually, because of bishop f6 we go a1. Like bishop f6 is threatening d7. And I think that's working. But okay, it's closer. What's the alternative to that? I mean, if it's not all of that, knight c2, bishop f4, how does that change much? How does that change? Yeah, I don't see that changing. Like rook c1, like white can play d5, king g8, bishop b2 in one move to get to that position where they can sacrifice the bishop. And I can actually prove to you why knight c2 is not working. Knight c2, d5, king g8, let's say bishop b2 here, a4, d6, a3, bishop takes g7. We can't take because there's d7, a2, d8, and even though we promote with check, you know, king moves, we don't have a follow-up. So bishop takes g7. Yeah, we're in trouble. And I repeat, rook c1, bishop c1, knight c2, bishop b2 in one move, a4, d5, king g8, d6, a3 doesn't work. Even a3, what am I saying? a3, bishop takes a3 even. So king e7 has to be played. King f7, sorry. But then bishop takes g7. That's the problem. And sure but okay, we have king e6. Okay, I can't prove it to you actually, guys. Rook takes e1, bishop takes e1, knight c2. Bishop b2, a4, d5, king g8, d6, king f7, bishop takes g7, a3. And that's it. Okay, what about knight c2, king f2, a4, king e2, a3, king d2, a2, bishop b2, a1, takes, king c3. Yeah, there we go. That does not happen after takes, knight c4, because after king f2, a4, king e2, a3, king d2 is... Yeah, like first of all, the b2 is always under control. Okay, now we have to go slow now. King f1 is essentially the same as king f2. It would be very hard to believe king g8 is winning for some reason. Because if my opponent wanted to play d5, they could have done it on the previous move. So that's still under control. I think the only reason why a4 could not be working is in case king e2, a3, the bishop sacrifice works somehow. But after takes, king d3, king g8, it's fine. I don't believe in that. Moreover, what else would it be if it's not king a4? Like if we if we go king g8, we give enough time for white to harass the knight. And then here, wow, it's surprising that this is the only move, but I guess king g8. Because knight b5, king c4, knight c7, king c5, knight b5, king c4. We can't, yeah, king c5 next move, and there's nothing. No way. Heartbreaking. That's insane. At least we didn't lose that much. I guess we lose less when it's down the line, like move 5 down the line. How on earth is this? Wow. b6. Don't tell me it's b6. Oh yeah. How on earth? If we had to stop b6, why did white not do it? Because we have knight c4. Okay. King g8, b6, king f. What should we? Yeah, I know. Yeah, white is just in time to create annoying things. Isn't that insane? We wasted all of that amazing calculation for nothing. Okay, it wasn't for nothing, but okay. Came pretty close. I failed to consider candidate moves. Let me stop this. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you. Do you stream daily or not? No. Only Saturday Sundays. I like the way you calculate, very non-lazy. Yeah, I'm trying to go for I am. B6. Okay, that's fine. We just lost 12. I think I'm gonna stop at some point. I don't wanna break my chess. Maybe we can stop at number 10, but if we're too close to 3,000, then I'm gonna continue trying. Still feel relatively, maybe not fresh, but I can still give it. Okay, puzzle number 9. Best of luck, people. Let's see. Okay, I feel like I've had this before. I've definitely... Okay. So knight c6 forces bc6. Any other candidate moves? Rook e5, definitely. So there's knight c6, bc6, rook e5, or rook e5 right away. And that's it. I don't see anything else. Bishop f6, maybe briefly considering, but then bishop takes f6. What's material? What's the material balance? What's the material... Yeah, material balance. What is it? Are we down? We're down a pawn. We have an attack, and the dark squares are potentially very weak. So we have a win here. That's why this is a puzzle. Knight c6, c6. Rook e5, queen e5. Immediately, I think... I don't know. If rook e5, obviously black, I think, has to play queen takes e5, because if knight takes e5, bishop f6... And how do you stop queen h6? You can't stop at queen h6. Okay, there's knight d7. Rook e5, knight e5, bishop f6. There's knight d7. There's knight d7, there's knight d7. Yeah, that's a little bit annoying. But okay. No, it is very annoying. So yeah, it's not forced. So maybe that's why you have to take first. However, like, yeah, queen e5, you would like to... Like, I think the fact that the knights are still over the board makes it so sometimes maybe knight f3 is going to be the winning move. And as soon as I said that, for example, rook e5, that's how you refute queen takes e5. Knight f3. You go knight f3. If queen f5, I believe a very strong move would be g4. So I repeat, rook e5, queen e5, knight f3, queen f5. And now g4, queen f3, bishop f6 does not threaten queen h6. So we have to be careful. Rook e5, queen e5, knight f3. But, you know, you can feel it. There's definitely something there. For example, bishop f6. And then bishop d3. Or, because bishop d3 right away, queen d3, bishop f6, queen f5. The same problem. So bishop f6 first. And that looks terrible. But as I said, like, knight e5 is a little bit of a problem because of bishop f6, knight d7. Easy to miss. And do you know why? Because it's a backward knight move. The deadliest of its kind. But very deadly, obviously. So what to do? Yeah, I wish I had time for bishop f4 and queen f6 or some sort of pin along the h2 b8 diagonal, but simply f6 is always there. So knight c6, b6, rook e5, I think is probably the mix, the sequence we should be looking at. Knight c6, b6, rook e5, queen e5, and we have to somehow go bishop f6, queen h6, queen g7. That's the only winning idea. That's the only winning idea. And yeah, that looks winning. Look, rook e5, queen e5. Bishop f6 right away fails to queen h5, obviously. So we go rook e1. Rook e1, a super move, sacrificing the rook. If they accept, we're very happy about that. We go bishop f6. Threatening queen h6, queen g7, unstoppable. Which means that black has to do something very... but then there's queen c1 or queen d2, stopping queen h6. Yeah, never mind. I got excited there. So knight c6, bc6, rook e5, queen e5, rook e1. They could take, unfortunately. You know, I could also... Yeah, it doesn't work. I know, wait a second. Bishop f6, queen d2 or queen c1, there's f4. There's f4, it's not the end. And sure, there is this check, but then king h1, queen c1 back. Okay, that's a little bit annoying. The back rank becomes weak. h3, queen f1, we sacrifice all of these pieces. You know, funnily enough, I think that's winning. h5, queen g5. But that's the problem. h5, queen g5, king h7. That's the problem. So knight c6, bc6, rook e5, queen e5. It seems like rook e1 does not work. It's almost there, but it doesn't work. What about... Okay, yeah, I think it just doesn't work. None of this works. Let's go back to rook e5, knight e5. Bishop f6, knight d7. Knight f5. Even knight f6. Knight c6, c6, rook e5, queen e5. Goes flying. Knight f3, bishop g7. Rook e5 looks very... Yeah, I just like the idea of keeping this knight. Knight e5 is the problem. And let's see if something works here. Let's see if something works there. Do you know what we haven't considered? Rook e3, rook h3 ideas. But okay. f6 stops that two-move plan. So... But okay, maybe we can combine it with something. Yeah. I'm gonna give myself 5 minutes. Knight c6, bc6. What is it? What is it? It has to be a rook e5. I don't see anything else. queen e5. 96 BC, rook e5, queen e5. I don't see anything other than f4. I mean, rook e1 I tried. F4, bishop f6, queen h5. And I would be amazed if it was something like queen h5, gh, and some quick. Rook e1, rook e5, rook g5. But I've seen ideas like that. Because we have bishop d3. Wait a second, knight c6, b6, rook e5, queen e5, bishop f6, forcing queen h5, queen takes h5, gh5, rook e1. For a moment, we're down an exchange plus tax. I'm gonna reset the timer. We're threatening rook e5 though. So we're threatening to threat, which is insane. Given that we're down like a lot of material. Okay, not a lot of material, but we're down material without queens on top of that. So you know what? It's gonna be some sort of position where I'm not checkmating, but my dark square bishop is gonna be so strong that the exchange sacrifice is just long term. But okay, just to finish that thought, queen h5, gh, rook e1. Threatening rook e5, rook g5, mate. If they go h6, we go rook e5, threatening rook takes h5, rook takes h6, rook h8, mate. They can never stop it with king h7 because of bishop d3. Knight c6, bc, rook e5, queen e5, bishop f6, queen h5, takes, rook e1. That's why it would have been a big improvement to get rook e1 with tempo. But then rook queen takes e1, unfortunately, it's just not working. Just very unfortunate that. Very unfortunate. It just seemed like it was working. Bishop f6, queen c1 or queen d2, and that's just not working. Truly annoying. Very annoying. Okay. But going back past that. Going past that. Knight c6, bc6, rook e5, queen e5, bishop f6, queen h5, queen takes, gh, rook e1. And visualize that for a second, like all of black's pieces are kind of useless. And I really want this to work, obviously. But I think it might work. Knight c6, I don't see a direct reputation. Look at this, bishop f6, queen h5. You exchange queens, super unintuitive. But then how do you stop rook e1, rook e5, rook g5? Rook e1, let's try again h6. Although e5 seems to be also very helpful because now the bishop is supposed to do something, but it can never get to f5. But okay, let's try h6, rook e5, king h7, bishop d3. Bishop d7, natural, rook h5. And then e5, you're just not in time anymore. Rook h6 and rook h8. And if king h7 again, bishop d3, rook e8, rook h6, rook h8. It's amazing. Knight c6, bc, rook e5, queen e5, bishop f6, queen h5, takes, rook e1. Let's try e5, very natural, rook takes e5. And let's try... You can't remove anywhere. That's another key idea of this, by the way. Knight c6, bc, rook e5, queen e5, bishop f6, rook e1. Actually, let's try rook e8 right away. So rook e5. Threatening... What are we threatening? Let's say king f8. But then rook h5. Rook takes h5. And you're just not in time to stop rook h7, rook h8. And if you ever go king g8, bishop d3, followed by rook h7, rook h8. Okay, knight c6, bc, rook e5, this, bishop f6. Obviously, there's nothing else. If queen f5, you know, bishop d3 is a gift, because then you have to play queen h5, and it's a much worse version. What? That's insane. What a move. Oh, what a position, I should say. It keeps going. I have to be careful. Let's not relax. But okay, rook e5 is the only logical move. Obviously, rook e3, e5, rook g3. This is a problem. And obviously, like, even if it wasn't that, like king f8, I have to get to the h file. So rook e5 is getting rook h5 too. I've seen that motive before, but it's unusual. But yeah, it's purely because of the dark squares. And obviously black's pieces are doing a lot of heavy lifting. Like the fact that this pawn is here. Actually, that's enough. It's thanks to this pawn. That's the only reason. That pawn is an imposter. So rook e5, king f8, rook h5, followed by rook h7, rook h8. Yep. That was an insane one, and obviously Lichess gives it an absolute rating that is completely not true. But yeah, just to finish this, there's nothing that black can do. Okay, I guess I missed this, yeah. But wow, okay, give me a second. What? Okay, yeah, you just keep that bishop. You never give that bishop up. Like, the blockade continues. That's true. And if ever... Okay, that's allowing mate. But if ever black wants to escape, you actually trade. And this bishop continues to be the absolute monster. So, as I said, I think... Yeah, it's all about the dark squares. Okay, trying to go for CM. Your work ethic motivates me more. Nice. Yeah, chess is 99% tactics. You should go for it. Okay. Reset timer. Time is ticking. Best of luck. We have fluctuated quite a bit. That's natural. If we can stay at this consistent 2,900 level of Lichess, I think that's pretty reasonable. But okay, we have this position. Black is up material because they have two pieces for the rook, but those two pieces seem to be, especially the knight on a6, pretty far away from the action. Queen h8, king e7. Queen h6 is also a candidate move. Actually, before we start calculating, this is actually interesting for those of you who are squeezing out the most value out of these live streams. You can tell how I become lazier. Like, I try to go for more concrete, like very linear. I stopped considering many candidate moves the further we go into these sessions. Like, I stop calculating wide rather than... I stopped calculating... Yeah, I stopped calculating wide. I stopped considering as many moves. So yeah, we should be cautious about that. Queen h6 is also a kind of move. Queen h8. The difference between queen h8 and queen h6 is that after king e7, which is forced, because queen h6, king g8, rook g1 is game over. The difference is that obviously the rook is not attacking our queen, so that extra tempo can be very valuable. And what else? I mean, rook f5. Rook f5's idea is that after rook e4, there's queen h8, king e7, rook f7, king f7, queen h7, and we win. So how do you refute rook f5? Because after queen h6, king e7, I'm a little bit annoyed. Or stuck. It feels a little bit stuck. So I want to anticipate king e7. And by the way, rook f5, king e7, rook f7, king f7, queen h7. So rook f5 seems promising. If black puts anything on e7, obviously bishops and queens, like it's not possible for a knight to land on e7, but in this case it's pretty convenient because all of these pieces make it that queen h8 is mate. If it was a knight, there would be knight g8, right? So rook f5, black puts anything on e7, it's going to be mate immediately. If black puts, I don't know, if black plays king g7, there is rook g5. Rook g5, there's king f8 and king f6. How do we reject both of those? King g7 looks very wrong, obviously, but it's one of those variations that they're annoying, like obviously wrong, but then it takes some time to fully neutralize. Yeah. Okay, let's just say it's obviously wrong. I mean, I can play queen g3. This is why I left king f8, queen h4. And then if they continue, I go queen g5. King f8, queen h6, and then obviously king g8, rook g5, and we force this queen blunder. Although we force it, so it's not a blunder. Queen trap. So rook f5, king g7, like we have this zigzag king back here, and if they ever go to h7, whatever, rook f3, rook b2, it's game over. So yeah, wow, it took me so long to refute such a bad variation. Now I think what's going to be serious is something like queen c7, which not only but wait a second, no, queen c7, I can take on c5. But then maybe it's not a win. Yeah, maybe it's not a win. So yeah, queen c7 is a tricky move. Now after queen h8, obviously this queen trap stuff is not working anymore. So that's the trick, or that's the idea of black. Rook f5, queen c7. And what do we do? I can give a check. And another check. I want to make it so that, like for example, queen h4, king d7, obviously rook f7. But they don't have to lose the queen. You can play rook e7. 4 minutes left. Okay, that looks super wrong. Rook d1 at the end of that. There must be something. Oh, there's some truly monstrous. Truly disgusting variations here. Rook f5, queen c7. Okay, I'm not sure. It's not clear. But queen h6, king e7 is not clear either. So I prefer that unclear. I prefer this position over queen h6, king e7, because at least we're stopping king e7. King e7 is the way for black to escape. That's my opinion. And actually, we can go queen h6. And now that there's the rook is attacking f7, or the rook is activated, it's a much better version than queen h6, because after king e7, we have rook d1. If bishop d6, we have rook takes d6, followed by rook takes f7, we should be winning. If after rook d1, yeah, like queen f6 is the threat. But wait a second, king f8. Okay, maybe it's not threatening as much as I know, yeah. King f8, rook h5, rook h8. But we're threatening to threat, and that's dangerous. Rook f5, queen c7, queen h6, king f6. Rook d1 threatens to threat, so that means we're threatening queen f6, which is not mate yet. The queen f6 followed by rook h5, which is another move that is not a check. And if it's not a check, it means that black has an extra move to survive. Rook f5, queen c7, queen h6, king e7, rook d1. You know, the good news about this is that also rook d1 seems to freeze black. And that's obviously a very good sign when you're calculating. Rook d1 is more than anything just keeping black immobile. And what I mean with that is, for example, a move like rook d8 is impossible because of queen f6, king e8, rook takes d8, queen takes d8, queen takes f7 mate. Rook f5, queen c7, rook queen h6, king e7, rook d1. What concerns me is I found something. I thought actually rook takes e4 was possible, but I'm getting tired here. Obviously that's illegal because the king is on the way. So rook d1, rook e4 is nothing to worry about. But even if rook e4 was possible, queen f6 followed by rook d8, like queen f6, king e8, rook d8, queen d8, queen f7. Okay, I'm refuting a line that is not even legal. Rook f5, queen c7 is refuted because of queen h6, king g8, rook g5 obviously, king e7, rook d1. Strong move. If they go rook f8, we go queen f6, king e8, rook e5, bishop e7, and rook takes e7, queen takes e7, queen takes e6. Black has boxed themselves. That's never a good sign. So queen c6, queen d7, queen takes d7 is mate. Rook f5, queen d7, let's try. This is the one I've been waiting for. I know, what am I saying? Queen h6, king e7, queen f6. Now that the queen is blocking king d7, now we're forcing king f8 back, and that can't be good. Now there's rook h5. Very nice move, by the way, rook h5, because it stops queen h3 while simultaneously preparing rook h8 mate. So rook f5 seems pretty strong. Rook e4, and now queen h8, and then this queen trap. I don't see anything. Bishop d4, queen d6, and we pick up the bishop. Rook f5, queen c8. We're running out of time. This is going to be perfect timing. I predict. Rook f5, queen c8. Queen h6 regardless. King e7. And 1,000 things win there, I'm quite sure. But one of the easiest is queen f6. King d7. Actually, I messed up. Rook f5, queen c8. Let's go queen h6. Okay, nothing is easy, yeah. I should not relax. Okay, let's just bring the other rook. Why not? Bring the other rook, rook f7. That's... No way, what? That's insane. Okay, I'm gonna end the stream after this. We're not gonna get to 3,000 today. But okay, it was a good run. It was a good run. Why on earth? That's interesting. Wow. What am I missing? I don't think it's king g7. that's insane. Queen g3, and then the zigzag, and unless it just transposes most of the time, so it's not king g7, I'm quite sure. Rook e6, queen h8, king e7, rook f7, king f7, queen h7 is winning, isn't it? Maybe there's some... No, I don't think. ba3, queen a6. Black is not in time. Rook f5, rook e4 doesn't work. Queen h8, this. Let's say king f6, king e6, queen b7. I don't see that working. Rook f5. f6, queen h8. f6 is a horrible move. Like, we can also go rook takes f6, king g7, rook f1, or... What am I saying? Rook f5, f6 takes, queen h6, king g8, rook g6, winning completely. Oh, what on earth? During a game, pretty sure I feel like... Yeah. Well, okay, we say that to ourselves because But I agree. Practically, it's insane, right? Rook f5. It must be an only move. I want to find it before we call it a day. Bishop d4. I think I found it. Queen d6, queen e7. We stopped calculating too soon. I know. Yeah, queen h6, bishop g7. That's some important variation. Rook f5, bishop d4 is the reason. Queen d6, queen e7, queen d4, queen h4. King g2, queen g4, and it's just chaos. Like we're allowing tons of checks and... Although maybe we can escape the checks. Queen d6, queen e7, queen d4, queen h4, king g2. I mean, there's also rook e4 for starters, so maybe that's definitely very complicated. So the answer, that's on a completely different, in a completely different note. Queen h6, king e7. Rook f5. Maybe that's... Wow. Maybe that order to provoke. It's not provoking it, it's just, yeah, making it. Queen h6, king e7, rook d1 maybe. And that threatens rook f5. Wow. Obviously I didn't calculate this, it was just an idea. But yeah, this transposes directly, I think, to some of the lines that we were calculating. Actually, it transposes directly, yeah. So I guess at least we calculate that properly even. So rook f5, queen c7 is a blunder, and we directly transpose to this, which is completely winning. But rook f5 is wrong because of bishop d4, queen d6, and queen e7. And you know, the only move, yeah, rook e4. Queen g4 also works, and then rook e4, I guess? No, queen h4. Okay. Okay, I don't understand this. Yeah, okay. I forgot that black could actually exchange the queens. Okay, well that was interesting. We're back to 2950, I think. We were definitely making progress, but then we increased 5 points. One of those points is from the daily puzzles. But okay, thanks everyone. Hopefully that was instructive. I'll be back to solving these. I'm quite sure we're gonna get there. Consistently solving these, I mean, we still solved more correct puzzles than incorrect. So, thanks everyone. What happened here? What? There we go. Thanks everyone. I'll see you around. Stay safe. And thanks for watching.